Have you ever found yourself standing in the wreckage of what once was, wondering how you'll ever find your way back? The job you lost without warning, the relationship that crumbled overnight, the diagnosis that changed everything in an instant. Life's storms don't ask permission before they rage. They burst through our carefully constructed lives, leaving us gasping for breath, desperate for solid ground. Today, I want to share with you how the most violent storms in your life aren't just survivable. They're the very passages through which God reveals his most profound presence. As Jesus calmed the raging sea in Mark 4:39, speaking those eternal words, "Peace, be still," he stands ready to speak the same power into your chaos. This is not just a story of survival. This is a journey of discovering supernatural strength in your most vulnerable moments. We're rarely prepared when life's storms hit. Like the disciples crossing the Sea of Galilee, we set out under clear skies, confident in our direction. They were following Jesus himself, yet found themselves fighting for their lives as waves crashed over their boat. In Matthew 8:24-25, we read, "Suddenly, a furious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, 'Lord, save us. We're going to drown.'" Does that sound familiar? You're following where God leads, doing everything right, when suddenly, the unthinkable happens. A child rebels. A spouse leaves. Financial ruin. Health fails. And in that moment, it can feel like God is sleeping through your desperation. I've been there. The night I received the call that my brother had been in a catastrophic accident, my world collapsed. Everything I thought I understood about faith suddenly seemed insufficient against such overwhelming darkness. But here's what I've discovered. It's precisely in these moments, when we have nothing left of our own strength, that God's power manifests most profoundly. The prophet Isaiah understood this when he wrote in Isaiah 43:2, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." Notice he doesn't say if you pass through waters, but when. The storms are guaranteed. God's presence in them is equally guaranteed. Think about that. The creator of the universe, who formed the seas themselves, promises not to make the waters disappear, but to be with you as you pass through them. This promise transformed my understanding of suffering. My brother's recovery journey was long and painful, filled with setbacks that tested our entire family's faith. Yet looking back, I can trace God's fingerprints in every moment, especially the darkest ones. The Apostle Paul knew something about unexpected storms. In Acts 27, we find him in the middle of a literal tempest at sea, facing certain shipwreck. For 14 days, the storm raged without pause. Acts 27:20 tells us, "When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved." Can you relate to that level of hopelessness? When days turn to weeks, weeks to months, and your storm shows no signs of letting up. When medical treatments fail, when reconciliation seems impossible, when financial recovery appears out of reach, these are the moments when hopelessness threatens to consume us. Paul and everyone aboard that ship had given up all hope. Yet it was precisely at this moment of total surrender that divine intervention arrived. In the midst of their hopelessness, an angel appeared to Paul with this message found in Acts 7:24-25. "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me." What strikes me most is not just God's rescue, but the purpose behind it. Paul's storm wasn't random. It was directly connected to his divine calling. His suffering had meaning. Your storm, too, carries purpose beyond what you can currently see. Jessica's story comes to mind, a young mother in our community who lost her home in a devastating fire. Through that tragedy, she discovered a calling to help displaced families, eventually founding a nonprofit that has housed hundreds of people in crisis. Her greatest pain became the birthplace of her greatest purpose. But let's be honest, finding purpose in pain is rarely immediate. The Psalms are filled with raw expressions of doubt, fear, and questioning. David cries out in Psalm 22:2, "My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer by night, but I find no rest." There is something profoundly comforting about the Bible's honesty regarding suffering. God's word doesn't offer us toxic positivity or simplistic answers. It acknowledges the genuine anguish of human experience. Your questions, your tears, your sleepless nights, they are all valid expressions of faith in process. Thomas doubted. Job questioned. Jesus himself cried out, "Why have you forsaken me?" The journey through the storm includes these moments of profound doubt and pain. When Michael lost his wife to cancer after years of faithful prayer, his faith was shattered. For months he couldn't pray, couldn't worship, couldn't even enter a church without overwhelming anger. That wilderness season wasn't a failure of faith. It was faith being reforged in fire. The turning point in any storm comes when we embrace a profound truth found in 2 Corinthians 12:9, where God tells Paul, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Paul then responds with something that seems utterly counterintuitive. "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me." Can you imagine reaching a place where you can actually boast about your weaknesses? Not in a self-deprecating way, but with genuine recognition that your limitations are precisely where God's unlimited power gets displayed? This is the paradox of kingdom living. Our deepest surrender becomes the foundation for our greatest strength. After months of questioning and anger, Michael experienced this transformation. His healing didn't come through answers, but through surrender. "I finally stopped demanding that God explain himself," he told me, and simply asked him to reveal himself. That's when everything changed. This surrender doesn't mean the storm instantly subsides, but it does mean you discover supernatural buoyancy in the waters. Isaiah 43:2 continues with this promise: "When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze." Notice again, the fire doesn't disappear, but its power to destroy you does. There's something miraculous that happens when we stop spending all our energy fighting against the reality of our storms and instead invite God's presence into them. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, we discover we're not alone in the flames. Daniel 3:25 records the astonished words of King Nebuchadnezzar. "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." This is the miracle available to you today. Not necessarily immediate rescue from your circumstances, but the unmistakable presence of Jesus within them. As your storm begins to subside, and it will subside, you'll discover something unexpected has happened. You've been fundamentally changed. Not broken, though you may carry scars. Not diminished, though you've lost things along the way. But transformed, strengthened, deepened in ways that only the storm could accomplish. Jeremiah 29:11 takes on new meaning. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." These words were spoken to people in exile, people who had lost everything and faced an uncertain future. God's promise wasn't that they would immediately return to what was comfortable, but that even in their displaced state, His purposes for them remained intact. Rebecca, who survived a devastating hurricane that destroyed her community, told me something profound. "Before the storm, I knew about God. After walking through it with Him, I actually know God. Everything I lost was worth that difference." Today, whatever storm you're facing, whether you're in the terrifying beginning, the exhausting middle, or what feels like an endless cycle of waves, I want you to hear these words from Psalm 107:28-30. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed. They were glad when it grew calm, and he guided them to their desired haven. Your prayers are being heard. Your tears are being collected. Your haven awaits, though the journey there may not follow the route you expected. This week, I want to challenge you to practice what I call storm-walking faith. Each morning, identify the specific wave that feels most threatening to you today. Name it specifically in prayer. Then, rather than begging for it to disappear, invite Jesus into it with you. Keep a simple journal of how his presence manifests, not in dramatic rescues necessarily, but in moments of unexpected peace, clarity, or strength. Share your storm-walking journey.